Welcome back to the Turn on the Music podcast. Welcome to episode 5. Yes, episode 5. My name is Kyle. We got CJ here this evening. How are you, sir?
Good. It's good to be here.
That's good. So we're back with episode 5. We are doing video again because video seemed to work last week.
Well,
So we're doing video again.
we get funny things out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, hopefully. So
hopefully. Um, yeah. Episode 5, measure 5 of the book *The Music Lesson* by
hmm
Victor Wooten,
Yep.
and we continue our saga.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
But what have you been listening to? I'm gonna get you this time before you
You're
get
gonna
me.
get me. The Fairfield Four is the new listen of the week. So I found this group. It was one of those. I was going through the Rune forums, which I haven't been on in a long time. But the Fairfield Four is a group. If you've ever seen the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," they are in that movie. And they did. Who did they sing? Elvis Costello, I think. Yeah, they did. They backed Elvis Costello on the Letterman show at one point.
I've never watched the movie. I got to see the movie now.
I haven't either. But they're a really great group from Tennessee. They're um, kind of like African American spirituals, four guys, barbershop almost style. So pretty cool group.
No, I was impressed when you shared it on the live show
Yep,
this past Sunday.
yep. And I actually did. I streamed their entire "I Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray" album on Friday, which was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, no, they were really good. I haven't listened to them more, but I need to.
yep,
That's my next thing.
yep. And I think I got another one that I'm going to check out this week. Freya Ridings. I've been hearing a lot about, and I've she's been on my list of people to check out. So I'm going to check her out on Friday. So
Oh,
if
very
you're
cool.
if you're listening to this, you're too late, but that's why you should be listening on Friday evenings because we listen to new stuff. So Freya Ridings is a female singer from the UK and kind of the progressive rock Natalie Merchant kind of style, almost Amy Winehouse ish.
Cool.
Excuse me. So that's what's on store or in store for Friday. I don't know what else we'll do, but we'll do something else. We
Well,
also did.
it's already happened when this came
Oh
out,
yeah, that's right. Well,
so it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
We also did the Bloodline on Friday, which was a group that Joe Bonamassa was in when he was 17. But the
I remember us talking about that.
yeah, the group is really cool because it's got. I mean, it is. Let me see if I can find the thing quickly because I always forget who's in the group, but the amount of like history that's in the group is just crazy. Let me just Google it really quick.
Good. That all being said, Kyle goes live on Twitch every Friday, which is what he's talking about. And I'm
Yep,
sure we'll
Friday evenings 8 p.m.
8 p.m. And then we go together on Sundays at
Yep.
7:30 p.m. The past few weeks we have been doing Victor Wooten and stuff. This past one, after this episode came out, we did a in memory of Harry Belafonte, who passed away
Yes.
on April 25th at
hmm
96 years old. He was a groundbreaking singer and actor. He was a huge activist, using his celebrityism for the good of the people.
Yep.
So we did a nice couple hours of
Yep.
his music, talking about him. I'm sprinkle a little bit here or there, but
Yep.
so if you missed it,
Yep. Make sure you're
sorry.
following us, so or
Yeah.
follow us on our socials, so you know when we're doing that sort of stuff. So
Right. At the end of this episode, we'll have a little closing. We'll tell you where to go find
yep.
us. And Kyle always puts everything in the show notes, so if you need anything, it's down in there.
Yep, it's there.
Even a link to purchase the book, The Music Lesson, which we're not affiliated with, so we don't
Right.
make any money on it, but we think it's so good that we're
hmm
still putting the link out there.
Yep, absolutely. So
So
the
if you need it,
bloodline. Here's the bloodline. It's got Robbie Krieger's son. So Robbie Krieger was the guitarist for the Doors. So Waylon Krieger playing the guitar. Barry Oakley's son, who Barry Oakley was the bassist for the Allman Brothers. So his son Barry Jr. on the bass. Then you have Miles Davis's son Aaron on the drums, and then you have
really,
Aaron. Yeah, then you have Aaron Hager, son of Sammy Hager, singing vocals, and then 17-year-old Joe Bonamassa.
that's crazy.
So yeah, it is quite the group. So
That's awesome. Very cool.
Unfortunately, only one album, but you know,
We got one album though.
that's right.
We could have gotten
So,
nothing.
yep, you could have. So, what are you listening to? Anything different these days?
So, I've been listening to the audiobook to just kind of refresh my memory on some of the chapters and to go through the stuff. And then at work, um, we, so I share music with a coworker of mine at work because sometimes we have a little bit of time that we're able to. So with Apple Music, you can share the audio and you can listen to the same stuff at the same time, and no matter where you are, whether you're across the country or whatever.
Right.
So we've been doing show tunes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I haven't listened to show tunes such a long time because I don't really have anybody who likes to listen to them. And my coworker who happens to be one of our followers, Carmen, she was like, "Let's do show tunes." So we've been doing show tunes, and I think we're gonna start doing like the whole musicals now.
Oh,
So
nice.
sometimes we have to stop. We got to answer a phone, do whatever.
Right.
But like we could put, we're gonna like we today we listened to Hamilton.
Nice.
So we're
Haven't
gonna
seen it yet.
probably do that, like kind of pick out some musicals and just listen to the full on musicals. So it's
Nice.
been fun. It's been fun to kind of go back down in that to that music and to have a little fun listening to it. And it makes me miss singing and being on stage and
Hmm.
just having fun with a group of people doing music.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but it's great. I love it. But outside of that, not much. Probably some more Victor Wooten, just because we've been doing the books. I've just kind of been on that kick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna tomorrow. I think I'm gonna listen to the Fairfield Four.
Yes.
Tongue twister. Fairfield Four.
Yes. Yeah, and the first album I listened to was an album called "I Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray," from '97.
Nice.
But they've got a live album that I've been wanting to check out too. Let me see if I can find that one quickly. Live from Mountain Stage.
Cool.
That's next on my list. So,
Awesome.
but they've been around for 100 years. It's one of those groups that they kind of bring in new members as
Oh,
as they
really?
grow. Yeah, so they've been around for over 100 years. Started
Oh,
in
that's
1920.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yep.
Their
So
oldest
yeah.
member is 100 years old. Hey, listen, Dick Van Dyke is pushing 100. He's still
Yeah.
performing. So,
Yeah, and the one guy he was a fetus when he joined the group. So
he was the tenor or the tenor. Um. Oh, nice. All right. Want to get into the book?
Let's get into the book. So this is measure 5, emotion and feel.
Yes. Which again, this was one of those chapters where I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to pull out so much stuff out of these chapters,
Mm-hmm.
and not that there isn't poignant stuff that we pull out of this, but there's not as much as I anticipated because of what the title of the chapter. All the chapters are fantastic,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but you go into it now and you think, oh, emotional feel. I'm going to take out so many things out of this thing,
Yeah.
but you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do take out is big.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I actually made sense on that.
Yeah, more or less.
So I'm gonna let you start off. Take
I
out
lo-
that Kindle at 100 point font.
Yeah, we're trying the Kindle tonight. So I've got the big words edition Kindle, which means there's about 3 words on a page. So, but it's illuminated so I can see it. It's better. So, what I love when Michael does these breakdowns of the words. Like he talked about
Yes, yes,
music.
yes,
And
yes,
MU is for mother and SIC is for science. So music
yes.
is the mother of all sciences. So he says, emotion is a powerful force. E meaning energy and motion meaning activity. So emotion can be looked at as energy in motion or active energy. If you play with vowels, the hidden meanings can be brought out of many words. Looked at another way, motion or mutone means mother of all vibration. Now you can see the power in this word. Emotion is a key element in music and in life.
Now it's funny. That's exactly one section that like stood out that I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
bring up. So me being me and being a little OCD with certain things, I went and looked up the word mutone.
Mm-hmm.
Curious to know if there is actually a word because it's spelled in the book MU-TONE. Now we know
Mm-hmm.
tone is an actual word. So I was looking at MU. I didn't find anything. So maybe I didn't look hard enough. but it's interesting how he does break that up.
Hmm.
So my thing is, and I meant to do another look, is there a Latin form of it?
I don't know.
Like, so if I typed in the word mu, it's the 12th letter of the Greek alphabet representing the voiced bilabial
Oh,
bilabial
oh boy,
nasal.
he's trying to read big words.
No, I can't see it. That's the problem because I didn't zoom in.
You should use your Kindle and then make it big like I did.
I don't have a Kindle.
Oh, then do command and scroll, and you can zoom into in Chrome.
No, whatever.
Oh,
It's
you're
fine.
probably using
Uh,
Safari. I don't know if it
I
does
don't
in
have to. No,
Safari.
I'm using what is this called? Chrome? Something called Chrome.
Oh, then you can do command and scroll, and it will zoom in, and then command zero goes back to normal.
But it's a symbol. In some text, a symbol. Oh, okay, I see. So it's just weird. Like I was just curious to see how much. Like, is he just pulling this out? Is this true? Is it a thing? Like mu naught or however it's written in physics is a permeability constant and is a synonymous to the permeability of free space or as a magnet constant. So technically, that's right. If you
Well,
really
there you
break
go.
that down, like mu is a constant, it's a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like you said, it just breaks the words down.
Yep.
So yes, that was definitely something. It's yeah. I'm gonna let you continue though, because I'm sure you have more to say.
Sure. Emotion properly directed can cause anything to happen. A mediocre musician can win over an audience by sheer emotion alone. Remember, any one of the 10 elements raised to a very high level can be used in a way that overshadows the fact that the musician is lacking in skill of the other nine.
So when he talks about the other nine, he's talking about the other
The other 9 elements that
the
they've
other nine elements,
discussed. Yeah.
just so so listeners to understand
Yeah.
when they're reading. Um, but it's so true in everything.
Yeah.
Like the way you direct your emotion plays a huge factor on how people or anything will respond to you. It's like they talk about plants.
Mm-hmm.
There was a study done where if they played like metallic or heavy metal, the plant didn't thrive as well. Where if you played classical music, it thrived better if it was by itself. And if you talk to plant, like it's just interesting how everything lives on vibration and
Mm-hmm.
emotion.
So I have a friend who's doing a rice experiment, which sounds really funny, but it's actually a really interesting experiment. So she has 2 jars of rice, and she is saying good things to one and negative things to the other. And what she's found after about 2 months or so is the negative jar of rice has mold that is green and black, but the positive one has mold that's more white colored.
Is it supposed to be white?
I don't know. It's just interesting that they both, I mean, like they both have grown mold. People have said that the positive one wouldn't grow any mold, but she has found that it's grown mold, but it's a different color mold.
Oh, now
And
I'm gonna.
it was made from the same thing, that the same rice. It was, that was, the same kind of rice. She used the same stuff, but just put it in 2 different jars, 2 different mason jars. So interesting that the positive one is white and the negative one is like green and black. So I don't know if that's, I mean, but she's putting emotion into it, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That's interesting. I'm trying to find out if they say anything about white mold. So what? So the question that came up is, what are the white spots on uncooked rice? So maybe
Could be
that's what.
starch.
And it says you're likely dealing with rice weevils. There are more than 60,000 species of weevils worldwide, broadly characterized as tiny beetles with long snout.
Interesting.
I'm wondering if that's it. They're weevils. Sounds like a band. The weevils. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Mold on rice presents itself as black, green, or white, powdery substance on the surface of a dry or cooked rice.
Hmm.
Interesting. There's a
Yeah.
whole there's a website called Mold Tutor. The most common mold that grows on rice is called Aspergillus oryzae,
You're really going after the big words tonight.
or Oryzae. Whilst this mold strain can cause gastrointestinal discomfort if eaten, so moldy rice is best been discarded. So basically, the mold is bad mold as well. Huh.
I'm just
Very
yeah. So
interesting.
yeah, so there's I'll put this link to this website in this might be where she found it, but this is from medium.com. It's called the article is called "If Negative Words Can Make Rice Mold, Imagine What They Can Do to People." So it's an experiment that this person did with
It just
essentially
came out of the book and went into food.
yeah.
It's about right for us.
Yep.
Oh, that's too good.
Yep.
So, after what you just read,
Hmm.
I think this is the interesting thing that comes about is that we as adults start to become more closed to a lot of things
Hmm.
because of the fact that whatever it be, maybe trauma, it's tainted, situational, environmental. You become protective of
Life
your,
kicks you in the head.
yeah, like all everything you could think of. Like
Hmm.
nothing's worse than the other. Just something has created this thing that causes us to be closed.
Yep.
And he goes on to say that a child, this is Michael, a child playing air guitar knows no technique or music theory and probably doesn't even own a real guitar, yet plays no wrong notes. The sheer enjoyment he exudes overshadows any of his shortcomings. This is emotion in action. And it's so true because when you just kind of play,
Hmm.
you're just happy, you're just having fun.
Yep.
Like there's nothing more to it.
Yep.
Like if you like it goes back to the previous chapter about consciousness and just kind of not consciousness and finding a way to balance the two. Like if you just play and enjoy, it's just happy time the whole entire time.
Yeah, and I don't remember seeing it in this chapter. I don't know where I heard it, but I'm sure it was a Victor or a Michael thing. But if you think about it, like we don't do music, we play music.
Right.
It's supposed to be fun.
Right,
And we
exactly.
do a good job of making it not fun sometimes.
I think so this I'm going to probably get ridiculed for saying this, but I'm going to say this anyway.
I ridicule you anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I know, I'm not talking about you though.
Oh, okay.
So I'm expecting it from you. So I think that is my thing with mainstream music. I feel like a lot of it is business generated.
Oh, sure.
And because it's business generated, the fun of the music is lost
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of songs. I'm not saying all songs because there's some songs out there that are fun and it is they have a good beat or
Right.
whatever they can do. But in most cases, something's lost in that transition into becoming more of a I'm going to make money off of it versus I'm going to put out this album because it has raw emotion in it.
Right.
And 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 like I said, it's not all music. It's not
Mm-hmm.
all of it. I just I feel like that's my biggest thing. Like I don't want to listen to something on the radio because the reason why they're playing that song is they're going to play it another 5 times in that same hour.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to hear the rest of the album. You're only going to know that one song in the album. Whereas you may listen to the rest of the album and there may be better songs. But because of that one song being a certain way or written a certain way or done a certain way, and because it fits on the radio, that's why it's popular. But then you might find out like track number 5 is like, oh, that is a deep song. That's a far better
Mm-hmm.
song. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that we saw this with Taylor Swift a little bit, where she took all her music and kind of redid it in a
Mm-hmm.
sense and put more of herself into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's still mainstream, still this, but like you apparently can feel a difference between
There is a big difference, yeah.
what was done versus what's done now.
Yep.
So,
And
so
and think about back to Ava Cassidy too. They told her to go out and go to New York, and they wanted to change her, and she didn't. She wanted to have fun doing music, and what they wanted her to do was not fun to her, so she didn't do it.
right, right, and it's tough in this business. So willing to sacrifice the possibility of making tons of money and to just do music, where
Yep.
you could potentially just not make money at all. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm gonna let you continue because you've been picking out stuff that I pretty much have been underlining.
Blind musicians are the same. So let me go back a little bit because I think he was. This is where he's talking about the blues musicians.
Yep.
Yeah, so it says blues musicians display a similar quality. They are rarely the best technical players. They are usually self-taught and may only know a few chords, but they have a tremendous amount of soul. Walk into any real blues bar and you instantly feel their emotion. That is what comes across through their music first. The audience feels realness of what the musician is putting out. Blind musicians are the same. Have you ever noticed that all blind musicians play with a remarkable amount of feel? Not some of them, all of them. Also, why is it that when a blind musician becomes popular, he stays that way? Think about it. He closed his eyes, rocking his body back and forth in his seat before continuing. A famous blind musician will be someone that your parents and your children listen to. Why? I'll tell you. It is because they fill their music with tremendous amounts of true emotion, and that is why they get across to their listeners.
It's
I, I,
true.
I mean, I've loved Stevie Wonder forever, and you're a big Ray Charles guy. You
Both
know,
blind musicians.
yep.
You know, it's so weird how that sense taken away from them, how it almost closes them out to everything else
Mm-hmm.
and allows them and gives them the ability to produce beautiful music.
Yep.
And they're talented.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the technique of a blues musician. They're not like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're talented. I
Yep.
mean, Ray Charles was a pioneer in the development of Braille for musicians.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, and Stevie Wonder plays how many instruments?
Mm-hmm.
Like their musical abilities is just crazy.
Yep. Do you know about Derek Paravicini?
No,
Okay, so there was a show years ago by Stan Lee, not Stanley, Stan Lee, um, called Superhumans,
right?
and they introduced Derek Paravicini, who they called the Human iPod. So Derek is autistic, and he doesn't have the coordination to like button his own shirt,
Sure.
but he can hear any piece and then play it. But he can then take that piece, play it in any key with any emotion you want in any style you want. So if you say, I've probably played him before,
I think I know who you're talking about. I didn't realize his name.
yeah. So he
I
is.
think
It's just amazing that he is not able to do what most people like. He can't make his own food. He has trouble dealing like talking with people, but when it comes to music, there's just something that clicks. And like someone who if you talk to him, has trouble with like social cues and that sort of thing, but when it comes to music, he is so emotional. It's amazing how that clicks for him.
well, it's funny. Do you remember we had a professor, and a name won't go out there, but we had a professor when we were in college. He was a pianist who played minimalistic music,
Mm-hmm.
very eccentric,
Yep.
right? Lived with his mother. She drove him
Mm-hmm.
to work. He must have
he
been in
was
his
he was one of my
30s.
piano teachers.
Yeah, a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
musician, really
Yep.
nice guy when you really
Yeah.
spoke to him.
Yep.
But oh my goodness, the way he played and the way he put emotion into these minimalistic pieces, which is so hard to do with those
Mm-hmm.
pieces.
Yep.
I mean, I almost got smacked across the face 5 times turning pages for him,
Oh, me too.
right?
Yep.
And I have to say that it was probably one of the best experiences I ever had on
Mm-hmm.
stage. And it was funny because for me it was last minute, like the page turn to get here. I'm sitting there on stage with this guy in jeans and a t-shirt because
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Will you turn pages for him?" And everybody was afraid to do it. I'm like, "No, I'll do it."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of watching him and having him nod and reading the music.
Yep.
And but like when you looked at him outside of the music world, he was a complete mess, quote unquote. I'm
Mm-hmm.
quoting that
Yeah.
because I hate to use that word, but that's a good way to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
He just looked like a complete mess. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what his background was. I don't know what he had. I don't know what he dealt with. I didn't any of that stuff. But he had something going on. But when he was in music,
Mm-hmm.
it was that was it.
Yep.
Like you wanted to be around him.
Yep.
and he played some weird stuff. You still wanted to be around
Mm,
too,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
And when he wasn't playing weird stuff, like I heard him play Chopin for a while, and it was
It's brilliant.
unbelievably good.
Of
Like,
course, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's like they said, Picasso was a fantastic portrait artist,
Hmm.
but was like, I could do something different, and
Right,
did something different. He
right.
knew how to do it the right way. He was like,
Hmm.
but I don't have to do it that way,
Yeah,
and that's what it is. He
and it
probably, you
and
know,
just like the stuff that he played, that 20th century stuff, like it takes a special kind of
yes,
player to play that stuff.
right,
Just your normal pianist is not going to be able to play that.
right,
You know,
right, yeah.
so
Wow, it just this chapter's sparking more than I anticipated, but in a
doesn't it
good way. In
always?
a good way, it
Yep.
always does. You read the last thing you read was it was because they fill their music with the tremendous amounts of a true emotion.
Hmm.
Um, I going into the next paragraph, Victor Wooten kind of responds to that. He goes to himself. He goes, "Whenever I want to think or feel deeply about something, I will often close my eyes. Sometimes I'll close my eyes to hear better." I've definitely have caught myself doing that, especially when listening to music, where I just
Hmm.
close my eyes because it allows me to put my focus on what's going on, like
Yep.
what I'm listening to at that moment. I mean, I do it at work sometimes where I'm
Hmm.
listening. There's so much going on around me, but I could hear a conversation going on that I got to grab some bits out, and I'm able to tune everything out and just put focus on that one thing that's going on.
Hmm. And that
It's
actually comes comes back during the rhythm chapter, I think. Yeah, with when you meet Sam, and he has Victor tune out everything except for the click of a metronome. So
right, right. That's the next. That's in the next chapter.
is that next chapter already?
Next chapter.
Yeah.
You're future boy right now. That's next chapter.
Well, like I said, it's coming up soon. So
Not soon. Next week.
I
Next
didn't. That's
episode.
soon.
That's it. I don't. Do you have more on that page you want to share?
I don't even know. The Kindle's weird. I don't have it set to show me what page I'm on. So
Okay. Well, in that area, do you have any more?
the next thing I have is blending emotions is what happens when two people fall in love. It is also what a psychic can use to read your thoughts, or what a politician uses to impose his will upon the public. Two or more people blending their positive emotions can cause miraculous things to happen. The opposite is also true. Two or more people blending negative emotions can cause catastrophes, from illness to world wars, from crucifixions to shopping malls. Michael kept a straight face. Yeah, I know. Emotion uncontrolled can cause a person to spiral out of control. The cause of this chaotic spiral is often difficult to recognize until it is too late. Most times, this lack of control will surface in a musician's life before it shows up in his music. Do you know any musicians who fit into this category?
And then Victor goes on and talks about the difference of the musicians,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that he states that when two people come together and blend their emotions and positivity,
Mm-hmm.
the impact that it makes.
A shopping mall.
Huh?
A shopping mall.
No, and then he talks about
I know.
negative people
I know. Just
ma-
kidding.
making a shopping mall. But it's so true, though.
Mm-hmm.
One person can make a difference, indeed.
Yep.
But like when you have two people on the same path for the same reason and thinking the same thing and
Yep.
sharing that energy and that positivity, I mean, it's why silent protests are so powerful
Mm-hmm.
because you're not making a noise, but there's enough of you there to make a noise
Right.
without having to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're just putting it out there, and it's kind of creepy how it works. And, I mean, of course, it's balanced everything. Like they said, yin and yang. So, of course, if it works, it's just that paragraph is just too much to read.
Yep. Yep.
And it's true, though. It's amazing. I mean, we talked about a little about in the last episode about how we both went through our struggles with how we learned and what we were learning and getting into the music and having to step away from it, having to go back to it, having to step outside of it, having to go back inside, like all these things that we had to do and still struggle with certain walls when it comes to you saying playing the guitar and me
Mm-hmm.
playing the piano.
Yep.
and all that stuff. And that's kind of what Victor Wooten talks about, is these different musicians that have dealt with a lot of that.
Yep.
Um, I'm gonna let you continue because I know by pages. I don't know what you have coming up because I can find up as you go
Okay.
along.
Um, I go on for a while without anything. Oh, page
So,
103.
well, okay. Before you jump to that far, um, so he talks all about the stuff. He talks. Michael talks about
He
politicians.
talks about the stuff and things.
Right. He talks about Victor Wood talks about the people he knows about that goes to this. Then Michael talks about politicians who use subtlety in their emotions to get crowds riled up, and they use
Hmm.
fear as a lot of it. Then he talks about how preachers use emotion too, but they use an absorbent amount of emotion in order for it to work. They can talk about whatever they want as long as their emotion is completely in the forefront,
Yep.
and and he talks about the amount of emotion that matters. And then he talks about his experience with a preacher and how the guy singled him out about how he was playing his music. And the one thing I loved that he says to himself, and then we jump into that page 103. He goes, "For the preacher to single me out because of my music, let me know that what I was doing was powerful.
Hmm.
My mom and dad always told me that church was inside of me, not inside a building." And I
Yep.
thought that was huge because think about that. The preacher's preaching a certain thing, and he got upset with him because he was playing something powerful, which was probably overpowering his emotion
Hmm.
to get the congregation to respond to the preacher versus the music.
Right.
And that whole thing before that, he talks about how people sometimes chooses their church or their congregation based upon the music that is there because of how powerful music is in their spiritual growth. So he's just talking about the preacher that singled him out.
Hmm.
So now you are on page 103. Where are you on that?
Now listen to what I am about to tell you. Musicians do not have to be believed in. We do not have to be trusted. Our music speaks for itself without the listener having to know anything about us. Music touches people's emotions in a way that nothing else can. When people find a musician they like, they are usually fans for life. If they like a musician and his music, they will open up their hearts to whatever that musician has to say. It matters not what country the musician or fans come from. Music is a language that all understand. It goes beyond and breaks down barriers. This makes the musician very powerful, and with power comes responsibility. And this is something that I've talked about for a long time about, music being a better religion than religion is, because it does transcend race, creed, color, whatever, you know, and it does what religion is supposed to do, and that's bring people together. But you
Right,
don't have people killing each other because one likes to play the saxophone, the other likes to play a piano. Like that doesn't exist in music. When
right.
was
And
the last person?
if you go to the extreme and listen to heavy metal and death metal and all that stuff, those people aren't killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're just coming together because
Yep.
they enjoy that form of music.
Mm-hmm.
At no point have we ever heard stories about these congregations coming together to listen to death metal. They're all dead,
Right.
or they got her shot, or there was this
Mm-hmm.
nothing happened,
Yep.
anything that's happening to that is from completely from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Music is totally a language, and it's one of those like it's funny because I also look at it the side that like I said, my wife is hard of hearing from deaf family. Sign language is their first language. Even the vibration of music plays a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were at our wedding, half
Yep.
the people dancing were deaf,
Mm-hmm.
and the way we had the speakers situated, they were able to enjoy themselves. They were on this floor dancing,
Yep.
and they were having such a great time. And it was just because of the vibration of the music,
Mm-hmm.
and that in itself can speak to somebody.
Yep.
Which was it this chapter that he talks about that? No, it's this. Let's continue. I think it's this
Okay.
chapter. Um, going on to the next page. I don't know if you have anything, but I have some stuff
Go for it.
I can share. Um, we create and release powerful emotions within ourselves and others through a realm called entertainment. The word entertainment can imply that one has entered into attainment or atonement, which means at one moment. At one moment, at one ment, I should say, at one ment. You could also call it intunement. Whatever you call it, just know that it represents a high level. So when you partake as a spectator, you may be watching someone who has attained this level. But you're not only watching the artist is allowing you to join him at this level. If you join him, it allows both you and the artist to reach even higher levels. As a spectator, you are actually able to push the artist to these higher levels. A gifted artist will carry you with him.
Yep.
And Victor's response was, "That sounds cool." It does sound cool.
Mm-hmm. And I think there are two really good musicians that do this. One of them is Bobby McFerrin, and the other is Jacob Collier. The way they are
Yes.
able to get the
Yes.
audience to interact with them
Yes.
and make them
Yes.
part of the show is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, I think they're the epitome of that because of what they do.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
any musician that gets the audience to do even a call response,
Yeah.
that's a big deal too. But I agree, they're probably they're the top rung on that because they
Mm-hmm.
do incorporate the way they incorporate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Totally agree with you. Moving down further in that page, uh, he says something to the fact the only time you may want to blend with those types is when you have enough positive energy to dilute his negative energy. So he basically is talking about an artist who has attained levels of negativity and how you could potentially still play with that artist as long as you have enough positive energy to break that down.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes even into life. There's sometimes you just deal with people that have so much negative energy that you need to use enough of your positive to
Yep.
be able to balance yourself out with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think I remember, was it a podcast that we were doing or was it a live stream? But I think you were the one that said, because I had someone affect me negatively one day just by their energy. And I think you said you should tell people to be responsible for their own energy. And I totally want to make that a sign and or a shirt and like wear it around and bash people over the head with it when they're being stupid.
Well, but if you
Sorry.
think about it, we the average person doesn't understand or doesn't want to accept or doesn't know how to accept what's around them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the feelings that they get.
Right.
It's not something that's taught to you. It's something you have to learn. It's and you can't even show it to somebody. It's something you have to accept.
Yep.
And it's funny because it's like when I've spoken to people about Reiki therapy, or I speak to people about um, spirituality in the sense of my belief, and also about even paranormal. I could talk to you about it all you want. I could talk to you about Reiki therapy. I could tell you I'm a Reiki master. But if you don't have the belief in it when I go to perform this Reiki therapy on you,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work
Right.
because you're not accepting of that energy at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not accepting of energy and I come to you with a bunch of positive energy, there's two ways it's going to go down. You're going to either be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 I can't
Mm-hmm.
take this," or you're going to want to absorb it and be a part of the whole entire conversation.
Right.
And I think people need to learn how to control and accept their energies. And I think that when people do that, and I'm not saying it's easy. There's no way
No,
that
it's not.
it's not easy. But if we were to learn how to accept the fact that we all put out a vibration,
Mm-hmm.
it could change a lot.
Yeah, it sure could.
I mean, that's what music does. It puts out a vibration. It's literally what it does.
Yep.
It puts out a vibration.
Yep.
And we radiate and we put out that vibration.
Yep.
It's a tough thing. It's a tough task.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yep.
I do like what they say at the bottom of this though. The cool thing about entertainment is that it's a choice.
Mm.
It's not like politics where
Right.
people get upset at you and say you're not American because you're not into politics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not religion where people are like, I can't believe you're not into religion, like that type of stuff.
Yep.
Music is still a choice, free and unencumbered. This is beautiful to some and frightening to others.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Victor kind of puts his response to that. It is hard to understand why musical freedom would be frightening to anyone, but I knew that what he said was true. It was this very freedom that caused that pastor to single me out in church.
Mm-hmm.
It's true because when you're the most powerful person in the room when it comes to, let's say, emotion and vibration, and then there's someone in the background that's sharing that emotion and sharing that vibration and wants to be powerful with you. They don't want to pass you. They don't want to be better than you. They want to be a part of what you're sharing. That's going to scare the person that's already has the power,
Yep.
which is why politicians freak out the way they freak out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And then it
Um,
goes on and says radio used to be driven by the public. Now it is driven by business, which is what we were talking about before.
exactly.
It seems that artists have to water down their music in order to be successful. That causes many great musicians to sacrifice their freedom in order to get their music on the radio. And I was like, one of the ones that I always kind of, I don't want to say, oh, I disagree with my thought now. Never mind. But there are a lot of musicians out there that, you know, the idea is that you have one or two big hits per album, and then, you know, the rest of the album is filler so that you can last longer on the charts.
Right. And that is what I was saying earlier is that, and nowadays it's even easier because, like, not, this was the running joke. This was a joke I heard from a comedian. He's like, when you did 8-track, all your songs had to be good because you really couldn't skip them. So
Right.
if you didn't have good songs through the whole
Mm-hmm.
entire 8-track,
Yep.
that was a crap track. That was a crap
Mm-hmm.
8-track. And
Yep.
it's nowadays even with the CD, it was like, skip,
Yep.
skip, or I'm going to
And
burn my own CD and take the songs off that I want.
right, and even now they're releasing singles,
Right.
you know, and these one off songs. There's so many artists just releasing one song, you know, and then maybe later on they'll release a full album. But for the most
Right.
part, like the releases now are just a song.
Right, or you could just make a playlist of your favorite songs.
Right.
Which, don't get me wrong, I've done, but it's more the fact that sometimes you want to just hear those songs.
Mm-hmm.
But they're coming off an albums where I pretty much listen to the whole entire album because they're fantastic albums,
Yep.
or the group is great, or whatever the case may be. And
Yep.
it's true. We're able to do a la carte with our music nowadays
Mm-hmm.
because of how it's done.
Yep.
Um, then they talk about how I don't know how true this is, and I'm very curious to do the research on this.
Mm-hmm.
Michael talks about how they have files. The politician keeps files in specific musicians like Jim Morrison, Elvis Presley, Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley, and a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
others. And then he talks about how in 1968, President Johnson called upon James Brown to address the public after Martin Luther King was killed, because he was the only one who had the ability to bring the crowd down from the
Yep.
riots and everything that was going on. And he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and then they kind of kept track of him because they realized how powerful he was
Mm-hmm.
as a human. And I'm not saying that this is true, but I actually want to do some research on this and find out how true it is. I know there's documentation to prove the whole thing about it, but I'm just saying,
Mm-hmm.
like, how deep does this really go is the
Right.
question. You know. And then they talk about how powerful church music is and how churches use music.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is this, and you're an organist and you worked with church choirs and not in all different, not like in specific religions,
Mm-hmm.
but or faiths or whatever. And my thing is this: if you have the right person preaching, they're going to use the music for the right purpose. If
Mm-hmm.
you have the wrong person preaching, the music doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
No,
Like I
you're
know a lot of
spot
that
on.
stuff a lot of that stuff that you do is more Lutheran,
Mm-hmm.
but I come from a Catholic faith, and there's not a lot of preaching, but more of speaking of the scripture. Where
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in Lutheran, there's a little bit more preaching that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And from my experience, and from talking to you, your pastor friend, she uses music for the purpose of what it's there for.
Yep.
Like she sees the good in it and using it for the good, and not being like, well, this is how I'm going to get money into the church.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's just it's funny because, like I said, I didn't underline a lot, but I took out so much out of this
Mm-hmm.
chat.
Yep.
I don't. What do you have? Like, I'm kind of like skipping through. Like, this is page 106 into 107. I don't know if you can see that on the
That's where I
keyboard.
am. Yeah.
What do you have coming up next that
So
you?
they talk about how there was, what war was it that they were talking about?
Oh right. It was in 1972. There were two warring countries in Africa.
Right, and they stopped the war to watch Pele play soccer.
Right.
Um, so they were comparing sports to music, and Michael says the only difference with sports is that competition is built in. That can cause disunity between athletes and their fans. Just as in politics, it can pit one person against the other, based solely on which team each supports. Although a great athlete can cause a person to rise above this disunity, there is no built-in negative quality like that in music. And then Victor says, "How can you say that? Music companies are always competing with each other, trying to make more money. They even fight for airtime, trying to take money from their, trying to make their artists more popular, and the other guys. What about that?" And Michael says, "You are talking about business, not music. When we attend a music concert, we do not go in order to compete. We put on a recording. We are not trying to win. Music is more significant than that."
Which is what you were
Yep.
talking about earlier.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it continues to say, imagine putting this kind of power to constructive use. Musicians and athletes have the ability to do that. And then just to skip a few, it goes, you see, the competition factor is virtually non-existent in the world of the music fan, which allows him to express and blend his emotions without fear of ridicule or shame. Anyone who can get another person to express himself freely is powerful because he allows all involved to recognize their collective and individual power. Again, this is beautiful to some and frightening to others. Welcome to the world of the musician.
Yep. And we were kind of talking about that on Sunday when you were talking about your grandfather saying there's always someone better than you.
Right.
And I was kind of saying, well, as far as I'm concerned, there should be no competition in music. I mean, because there is none, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, and then I spoke about how more of the fact that at the time that it was being told to me, I took it that way
Mm-hmm.
competitively. Part of the reason why is because I was in competitions and trying to
Right.
win money or whatever. And as I got older, I thought of it more of a I can be better for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I can be better for myself, which makes me better for other people, which makes me be able to be there for other people, support other people, and everything like that. So I kind of took what he said and brought it more into a non-competitive stance.
Right.
I'm not trying to beat you out as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
You know your stuff as a musician. I know my stuff as a musician, and together we could do great things.
Yep.
But that doesn't make me better than you, and that doesn't make you better than me.
Yep.
That just means we're better than ourselves because we're working together.
Yep.
And that's how I started approaching that.
Yep.
Yeah. I I don't know
And
what you have
yeah,
next.
and then he goes on and says a little bit later on, excuse me, intention is the key to everything. Emotions are natural. You have always had them and will never get away from them. I look at my emotions the same way that I look at musical mistakes. Trying to get rid of them or control them can seem an impossible task. Learn to recognize and understand what they have to tell you. Only then can you effectively work with and use your emotions. How they are used is up to you. This is where intention comes in. Pure, honest intention can bring out the beauty of any emotion, and like notes, there is a world of beauty residing in each one. The proper technique can bring you to the understanding and use of each emotion. Now you can start to see how the different elements of music relate and help each other out. Then Victor says, "How do I use the intention?" And Michael says, "Just have a good heart. That is all."
And I have more to read. Like we're gonna read a chunk of this because there's more to read.
Yeah.
Just have a good heart. That is all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've always said. Just lead with kindness.
Yep.
No matter what, no matter what faces you, no matter what anxiety you're dealing with, no matter what you're processing, no matter what trauma you may have, if you lead with kindness, you'll process and be able to get. And I'm saying this with the fact that I'm dealing with my own anxieties, my own past trauma, my own everything. But if you lead with kindness, even with the negative people in front of you, at least by the end of the day, you led with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what happens, your intentions were always filled with kindness.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna. I have. There's a paragraph after that, but I was going to jump into the one after that. If you, I don't know what else you have, but
No,
I'm going
go
to.
for it.
Okay. So this kind of stood out. It is like trusting the river current to take you where you want to go. To fight the current could be disastrous. In each situation, whether it be in music or in life, take a moment to close your eyes and feel the current of your heart taking you where you need to be. After your awareness drops, you will no longer need to close your eyes. You will feel the pull of your heart's current and ride it with open eyes, allowing you to view all the astounding scenery around you. I tell you this, if you can follow the current at all times, you will not have a thing to worry about ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's so profound
Yep.
and so hard to do at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just so hard to do.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything to follow up with that right now. So you
Yeah.
can share what you have up next.
Um, why do you practice music? Is your intention only to make yourself better? If so, all the forces of your being may come to help you. But if your pure intention is to make all musicians better the same way musicians before have done, the forces of all these beings may come to your aid. The spirit of music herself will be on your side. Now listen closely. Michael leaned over in my ear. Strive to make all life better, and you will and you will have all of life's power backing you. With this power on your side, you will not have a thing to worry about ever. I would
I
comment, but I can't say anything better than that. So
yeah, there's no way to comment on that.
yeah.
So just yeah. Down at the bottom of that page though, and this kind of goes to something else we were saying. They turn off the main road and they get onto what's called Music Row in I believe Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sign that says creating music is our business. And Michael points to the sign. He says, music is already alive. You do not create it. I'm not going to read any more of that. That's enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's true. Uh, what you're writing is already out there, and it goes back to the whole thing where they talk about Michelangelo and
Mm-hmm.
how he wasn't sculpting a sculpture; he was just getting it out of the marble, and it was already there,
Yep.
and there were just pieces in the way blocking it.
Yep.
You know, and that's what he says in the next page, actually.
Yep. Yep.
um,
Yeah, I brought it up last week. It might have been because I read 2 chapters last week.
no. But
So
it's poignant. It's to the point. It's there. Um, and then he goes into this whole thing about the words again,
yep.
like recognize and cognize and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to jump past it unless you want to talk about that.
No, go for it.
So this is what I think. This is one of the coolest things that came out of this chapter. The word musically broken up becomes music ally.
Mm-hmm.
Play musically and you become an ally of music. You actually help music do what it is here to do. The same is true with nature. Play and act naturally, and you become a nature ally, a friend, a helper, and a contributor to nature. The word natural means having the characteristics of nature, but also means without sharps or flats. That's in music, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I speak of music and nature in the same breath. They are the same thing, and it is everyone's best interest to become their ally. Your pure intention combined with emotion is the best way to do that. Do you understand?
No,
You don't understand that?
not yet.
So
I
you
get it, but I can't
okay?
embrace it
That's
yet.
what I was going to ask you. So like it makes sense,
Yeah,
but it doesn't
but I can't do it yet.
because there's we're dealing with our own past.
Mm-hmm.
We come from a time where mental health was not seen yet, not in the way that it's seen today.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to process and deal with things, sometimes not process and deal with things. Like it
Yep.
just didn't happen. And now, later on in life, you're processing and dealing with these things that you should have been able to process and deal with back when you were a kid.
Yep.
And it's funny because that's my thing now. Like I'm doing whatever I can now as a father, and my wife and I are working together to give everything we need to our son now, even if it's therapy,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that when he becomes my age, of 43 years old, he's not processing the stuff that he needed to process back when he was a kid at 43 years old.
Right.
Because that's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's so amazing that there are more and more celebrities out there using their celebrityism to put mental health in front of them. Kevin Smith just did it recently on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, talking about how he had a mental breakdown and he went to his facility to talk about all this stuff. And I didn't read a lot about it, but I know a lot of people are like you either love him or hate him.
Right.
But I don't think anything he's ever done was done with that intention. I truly think he's that good of a person.
Right.
And to come out and to kind of say, hey, listen, I've had this, and that's what I think that this book is hugely about,
Mm-hmm.
is Victor Wooten's mental health
Yep.
and how he was processing so many things in his life and just didn't know how to process it.
Mm-hmm.
The struggle within himself to be a better person more than just a better musician.
Right.
And I agree with you. I understand what I'm reading, but I don't get it yet. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
there yet.
Yeah.
So
And the whole music as an ally thing comes back a lot in the second book. So
yeah.
we'll return to that.
Right. So the next part of the book, or I mean the chapter, like there's a few pages,
Mm-hmm.
is it's more of a scenario.
Yeah.
So the idea is they pulled into the driveway of Victor's a house, and they're parked there, and Michael and then they're talking, and Michael picks up a stone and he holds on to it for a few minutes, and he puts the stone on the hood of the car, and he tells Victor to get four more stones, and Victor picks up the four stones and he says, put them on the car, and Michael's not looking at this, his back's turned, he can't see anything that's going on, and he goes to the car and he picks out the stone that he originally picked up, and and they did this multiple times, and every time
Mm-hmm.
he picked up the stone that was his stone that he originally picked up, and Victor could not understand how he was doing this.
Yep.
And then so Michael, of course, showing like wanting him to learn this, tells him to pick up a stone, to hold on to it, and then to put it down and try to pick up the stone. Of course, Victor couldn't do it the first few times that he did it. It took him up until like the second to last stone to pick out a stone.
Mm-hmm.
Michael teases him and says, try to do it on the first time next time. But he goes, how? How do I do this? And he says, put emotion into the stone.
Mm-hmm.
So he tells Victor to put in the emotion of love,
Mm-hmm.
which is something I've always said, that love is one of the strongest emotions, which we all know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of the hardest to deal with.
Right.
Because there's good, there's bad, and there's the ugly
Mm-hmm.
involved in love. There's hate in love.
Yep.
There's kindness in love.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of hurt in love.
Yep.
There's everything is incorporated in this one emotion that's supposed to be the most amazing emotion that we've ever or will ever feel in our lives, whether it's through family, whether it's through friends, whether it's through significant other, whomever you're sharing that emotion with. And I'm going to go as far as even pets, because sometimes that's all people have are pets,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I'm, and there's a lot plants, even plants, all people have are like, there's just, that's what it is. So he says to put it into this rock, and Victor says, okay, I'll do it. And he holds onto the rock. He does everything he can, in a sense, also feeling silly that he's doing this, but he puts the
Mm-hmm.
focus on it. It gives the rock back to Michael. Michael puts the rocks in the car, and Victor goes up, and it takes a few moments, and he feels the heat that he felt off of the rock, of his rock, and he was able to pick his rock out.
Yep.
So I believe in this.
I do too.
I was going to ask you, do you believe in this?
Yeah.
I believe in transfer of energy.
Mm-hmm.
There has actually been a study done of how transfer energy works. There was even a thermal camera used on someone. I don't even know if the video, it's an old video, showing these two people sitting together and this heat transfer between the two of them. So there's some scientific studies done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Energy is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think there's the more interesting one for me anyway. Is the what I think it happens in the next chapter where he asks Victor to go into his house and pick out his CD
Yes.
without looking.
Yes.
And they're both not looking, and Victor reaches for it, and goes, "Nope, wrong one." And it's Michael knows exactly where it is, even though it's not his CD collection, but he
Right.
knows by energy where that CD is.
Right. And he knows by the emotion that comes out of that CD, that music
Yep.
that was played by that musician, that was recorded by that musician, which, Michael said previously that that emotion is a part of you out there in the world.
Yep.
It's out there now,
Hmm.
forever out there. Whether it's recorded or not, you've put it out there. It is out there in the world.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I totally believe in this whole concept of emotion and of energy and how energy can play a big factor. I mean, there is a proven fact that we can ground ourselves by stepping on dirt with bare feet.
Hmm. Yep.
It's a proven study. There's studies being done on our consciousness of what happens to our consciousness after we die.
Hmm.
There's a Josh Gates does like a 4-part series about the afterlife, right? And what happens to us after we pass.
Hmm.
There's a book out called Stiff, written by Mary Roach. And I read it and I also listened to the audiobook. And she talks about what happens to cadavers after they go, but she talks about what happens to your soul, your spirit, and there's so much talk of what are we, and then there's like your beliefs. Do you believe in
Hmm.
past lives? Do you don't believe past lives? Do you be like the soul moves on? Is there a heaven? Is there a hell?
Right.
What is purgatory? Are we living in purgatory? And this is
Hmm.
what our deciding factor. This is what decides where we go. Like, there's so much.
Yep.
And I've always wondered why we talk about God or a higher being, and when you go to all religions, we're all talking about the same God and higher being.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you read the religions and you look at all the religions and you look at everything that's written down, they're all talking about the same stuff.
Hmm.
You know? And then we as humans take certain things and we're like, well, we're gonna misconstrue this a little bit.
Hmm.
Make this work the way we want it to work.
Yep.
But in all religions, it's all about kindness. In all
Hmm.
religions, it's all about being the good for the person.
Right.
And they're using this higher being to help instill fear into people in order to create the kindness in the world.
Hmm.
How do you do that when you're instilling fear into people?
Right.
And I know that that's like, I'm interpreting it the way I see it. I'm not saying this is 100% true, but this is my theory and interpretation on it, which is why
Hmm.
I've always struggled with a religion versus having a spirituality and faith. So that's how I see it. It's like we're focusing on the same God, and we need to be fearful, right? Is that what they say? They say you have to be fearful of this God because
Depends on what religion you're
right,
talking
right. But
about.
in the sense,
That's more Judaism. They focus more on the Old Testament, which is where that comes from.
right. But their religion is religion of light.
Hmm.
So it's just I'm just saying like it's all these different factors of how they talk about this God being fearful, being uh, whatever, but they're still instilling something in you to be a certain way.
Yep.
If you're not kind, that person, that God is going to be mad at you in some way, shape,
Hmm.
or form.
Yep.
Where you're not going to get the good in life, or you're not going to, whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
like that's an extreme thing, but I'm just saying, like,
Right.
so and I think that's why this book and the next book is becoming such a staple in the way I perceive life.
Hmm. Yep.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah. And to go back to what you were saying about love, it says, love is the strongest of all emotions. It is also the root of all emotions. In a sense, it is what all things are made of. It is definitely what all things eventually revert back to. So using love as an emotion will allow you to blend with the very essence of the thing that you are focused on.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That was a good find considering you have a Kindle in your hand.
Hmm.
No, but that's so true. I love that ending of that chapter
Mm-hmm.
because after that whole entire conversation, they're just talking about rock and energy.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Here's a rock. Find it.
Mm-hmm.
These episodes are becoming more and more what's the word? Philosophical,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it does say a spiritual search for growth through music. So,
I know I'm not. I'm just saying, like it's just sharing more than anticipated.
mm-hmm.
You know.
Yep.
But if we don't share, we don't learn. If we don't learn, we never grow.
Yep.
And if we don't grow, we're never going to better ourselves to help others.
That's true.
That's my saying. I'm sticking to it.
Do it.
CJism. I have nothing more to say.
I don't either.
Let's do a little. So when this episode drops, Friday night after, Kyle will be live at 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he'll figure out last minute what he's doing because it's always nice to find it last minute because sometimes you just find the good stuff last minute.
Yep.
The Sunday after, we will go live at 7:30. Typically, we've been working with the Victor Wooten albums. We've been kind of going in order of date. The one that we just did this past Sunday, as mentioned earlier, it focused on Harry Belafonte just because he passed prior, and he was a huge impact in the music community as well as activism, and
Yep.
he used his celebrityism for the right reasons. So, but yes, join Kyle on Friday nights. Join us on 7:30 on Sundays, and we're gonna whoever reads the closing, we're gonna read out all of our social media stuff and follow us, join us. So we have Instagram, Twitter, we have Discord, we got our Twitch show, we have YouTube's now, and these episodes, if you want to see us, starting with what episode 3 or
4.
4. So episode 4 of this season, we started filming us so you can actually see us on YouTube making faces and doing silly things and whatnot. Yeah, when you hear our closing, you'll hear all that good stuff. Kyle, as usual, puts everything in the show notes, all the good stuff
When I remember.
when he remembers. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Are you reading the closing or am I reading it?
You did the first 3, so I'll do the next 3.
Well, that's a good split. I like that.
Yeah.
It's very nicely done. It's very kind of
And
you.
just for so we did do a pre-record of the closing. How many takes did it take you to do yours?
It didn't take me that long. It took me like
Like
2 or 3.
14 or 15? No, it
No,
was
it
more
didn't
than
take me that.
it was
Was it
way
really?
more than 2 or oh yeah, it was like
Did it
7
really?
or 8.
I don't remember
Yeah.
taking that long doing it.
Yeah. I did it in one.
That's
But then
crap.
but then again, I didn't have something going 3, 2, 1.
That's true. I tried it every time.
So
That's
yeah.
too, that's great. That's good. All
So
right.
with
So
that being said, we'll do the closing and then we'll see you all next episode.
yeah. Thank
All
you
right.
for listening and continuing this lovely saga of the music lesson.
Yep.
Have a great week ahead.
Yep. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.